so think if you're a filmmaker, thinking about like how am I perceiving things, right? If I was sitting in a classroom, like what sources of light are there? Okay, so we're sitting in this room now, right? And we have these fluorescent lights and sort of like light from these monitors and light from that room emanating in here. And they all sort of create different qualities, right? Like this is sort of like so the whole room's sort of awash with fluorescent light here. And then you have this sort of like light that's sort of bouncing in from here. And so then you look at like James's or Justin's face, and you can sort of, not to put you on the spot here, but, and like sense like how the light is sort of like portraying him, right? And I think, so that's another important aspect, is like the artistic aspect, right? So you can use light to your advantage, right? So you want to create a mood or create a feeling in the way that you light your film, which what most people would call cinematography or yeah, I think that's the best term for it. Basically, the artistic side of film lighting and how the look of your film in order to portray a certain feel. And I'm sure that's like so intrinsic in anything you watch that you notice it automatically, you know what I mean? Like a horror film looks different from a comedy, looks different from a drama, right? But they're all important to what the film's trying to achieve, right? So, where were those couple I had up here? So if we turn these all off, right? Now, I don't know, Jared, or maybe one of you, Joey, do you want to go stand in there? I don't want to like, hey, use you as a dummy, but I'll go with it. Now, maybe sit at the table, or
behind the table.
Yeah, stand a little bit, stand like right there for now, okay? Jared, shut them all off right now.
No spot.
One second.
They're so deep. Oh my god, that's perfect.
Okay, so I'll be honest, I don't know exactly which of these control which light we want.
But all the best ones, that was perfect.
Some of these are spot lights. But
when he started telling a scary story.
Yeah.
Right. So this is that's pretty good. So like we can play around. Okay, so right there. We're going to talk about the system of like basic film lighting, which is like what you call 3-point lighting, right? Now, how many of you guys have heard of that before? Yeah? Yeah. Right, it's pretty like standard, but you can do a lot with it, I think. And it's basic, but it's pretty fundamental, I think, to like how to properly light a film. Or at least it gives you a concept of how to properly light a film, and you can take it from there, right? So, we basically have one light on it now, one out of the 3-point lighting system, which we might call this, let's see. We might call this our key light, which is like basically your primary light source, right? So you have that at about, again, I'm judging based on where these lights are hanging from, but maybe 45 degrees from like the subject's face, and this one's at an angle above, which is kind of nice. That could maybe be like an evening sun light. I don't know, but, right? And also something to note, which is really important, which we'll talk about in a little while too, is color, okay? Because I think that's something that's also overlooked, but it's a really powerful tool in that sense that if you look at these lights, if somebody had to describe to me, like, I don't know, what color in general the light feels to you that's falling on like your arms, what would you call it? Just from this room.
White.
White. All right. Yeah, it's pretty white. It's almost, if you really look at it, almost like a bluish, like a really light bluish. Maybe not. The fluorescents are like very kind of harsh. But if you look at that light, what would you say? Because it's very different, right?
Warm.
It's warm, right? Which you'd call it, like what color would you maybe associate with that? Yeah, yellow, maybe even orangish, right? So that's another thing to keep in mind, okay? And just a little of the technical stuff. Those lights in there.
I think he has a question.
Oh, yeah, Joey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. There are mics in there.
Also a thing
you perceive the lights above you as
You can put it
white,
into-
but they're actually more of a green when they hit. Like I know if you sometimes you can do this with glasses.
Pause.
I'm sorry. This yeah.
Hold that thought.
Okay. So what's the question?
What I'm saying is, do you have to like change your hues a little because those are actually like really green. I think when those lights hit the lens or something, they turn greenish.
Can you hear me when I'm talking in there?
Somewhat.
Okay. I'll try to talk in between for a little while. If you want to set it up, yeah.
To keep them entertained.
Joey, can you hear me from here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll speak loudly. So, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I think.
What was his question?
Your brain, he's getting at the point that your brain knows to adjust for the white balance. Your brain automatically adjusts for white balance.
Right.
To a certain extent.
Okay, so you want to talk? Okay. Yeah.
Whereas if you took a picture of this room, it would look a lot bluer than it does now.
Let's hold off on that. We'll get to that in a second. All right. So we're talking about color, right? So we have like these lights, which are what we call color temperature. Is basically like the quality of the light, which is, and it's very like sort of scientifically defined, but it essentially comes down to sort of like what you perceive the color or the tone of the light, or the hue of the light, right? So these are fluorescent bulbs, which have a very harsh, it's like everything at school is fluorescent pretty much. Not very warm. Gives you that sort of like what I would say industrial like feel, just because a lot of commercial buildings, most commercial buildings use fluorescent lighting, right? And these in here, I believe they're either halogen. I don't think they're incandescent, or I'm actually not sure. But they're either halogen probably or incandescent. Do you know, Scrooge? No. But they hover around like the same kind of light color temperature, but you get that really warm, like orangish glow, kind of yellowish, right? Which is like what you have in your house. Incandescents are a lot more. They have that warm tone, a lot more pleasing. A lot more pleasing for skin tones, right? Can you hear what I'm saying really well now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, if I go like this.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to travel around the door, and I don't know how sound resistant.
Yeah. There's somebody. Why don't somebody just so he can switch with Mr. now?
Okay.
We'll just rotate here. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but
No, it's fine. I can
Just so you can
Use the PA system.
I
So we
mean,
can
wait,
hear
can you
you.
hear me on this? Because you
Yeah.
said.
If you want to talk to me,
what's up, Joey?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh yeah, I can hear
Yeah,
you
just-
through the.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Should I talk through
Yeah,
that?
I can hear
Why
you.
is it putting it on?
Okay.
Why does
Okay, Joey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Penny, put it on?
So, where was I? No, Joe, you can come in here now.
Switch out.
Come in here
Okay.
again.
There you go, Ted. You can hear him through the internet.
Okay. So we have the key light, right? Now let's take this light. Where's this light? Let's just... Alright, so if you look at his face, right? On the left side, it's sort of, it's a little bit bright, and you've got those shadows on the right side. See that? Right? Oh yeah, you can see it up there as well. Actually, yeah, I should check that out. Right. But also, this is a good example of something where, if you look out there, right, and then you look on the monitor, like what sort of discrepancies do you see?
It's cooler.
It's cooler.
Yeah, the color.
The color.
Yeah,
Okay, what else?
It has more of like a yellowish, just like
Other than
yellowish.
color. if
Is it less
anything else.
contrast on this?
Okay. I would say in general, it's just, yeah, I think contrast is probably a big part of it. You can't really perceive the shadows as properly. If you look on his arm there, like on his right arm, he's got that sort of, yeah, just leave your arm where it is, that's okay. You sense it's like really bright, that's that overexposure I'm talking about, right? So you've kind of like lost that information because the camera can't properly perceive that light, it's too bright. But if you look at it with your eye, it looks fine, right? So that's an example of something where your eye is much better than what this camera can do for you, right? So let's see if we can bring in another light here. Okay, so that's if you look at his face now, like, and this is a film studio, so you're not going for like a lot of dramatic, what we would call lighting effects. So that's sort of like a really well, evenly lit face, right? Like his face is, now there's a couple shadows, right? But it's pretty well covered, you know? So that's sort of like the 2-point lighting. You have the key and what we call a fill light, which, if you turn them off, I'd probably call this your key light, and that sort of fills in the shadows and stuff. You see that, right? Yeah. Okay. Let's see if we can get another one here. In the back. Another angle. Just playing around. Sort of like a bounce on it. So I guess that'll kind of do it for us. It's not the perfect example, but of that third, in this 3-point lighting system, that's kind of like the third light, right? So you get that backlight, which I think is one of the most overlooked parts of that 3-point lighting system, but I think it's important. I think sometimes you can forego it, but it definitely adds something if you want that look, where it gives you this sort of like it makes him stand out against the background more. The rudimentary method, I guess you'd say, is to filter the lights, right? So you take which I'll get out in a little while if I can show you guys those, what light filters will do for you. You can take, if you take bright white light and you put a blue filter over it, you get a different tone to the light. A lot of times you might use an orangish filter or a yellowish filter, right? So let's say you want to set up a light that's simulating like setting sun, right? And you've obviously seen a setting sun, it's extremely orange, right? So you can do something like that. Or simply just, because it's surprising how yellow light like this is, right? So you could put a yellow filter over a fluorescent light. It's not actually the best because fluorescent lights really, if you look at like the spectrum of what colors are in there, you don't actually have all the colors available to you. But it would help you out there, right? Or you could do this thing where, like on these like DSLRs, you set your white balance to a certain color temperature. In this case, it would be like fluorescent light. Right? So, if you've ever, what are you? Okay. Nothing. So that if you set the white balance to something like this, your images will appear a lot warmer and it'll look a lot better, in my opinion. But I mean, if that's not what you're going for. But if you want, like, if you've seen like a horror film that's kind of like washed out and grim and stuff, you can also go with that one, right?
Yeah.
So do you understand that, or?
Yeah. The only thing is that they're kind of they're not in, the light bulbs aren't in anything. It's just socket and a light bulb that reflects off of an umbrella.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how it can actually get a filter over the light bulb.
Well, if you get, I mean, I guess that's sort of like more of a logistical issue. I think in theory, if you cover your reflector with a gel, that would also do it. But you could, if you get these gels, they're heat resistant. So, and actually, fluorescents don't really get hot anyway. So, I mean, I don't know like what the best suggestion is, but I'm sure you could sort of like jury rig something that would just sit over the bulb, or really only the bulb in one direction. You know, I mean, it depends what your setup is, right? But I'm now running on reserve battery
I have a question.
now. Yeah.
What are umbrellas for? Like when you're lighting stuff?
Bouncing little light.
Jared, you
Instead of
want
making it so harsh.
answer
I mean,
that?
Mr. Square is a photographer. Photographers tend to use them.
Or Mr. Squirty?
Yeah, they soften the light. By bouncing the light, it softens it instead of hitting you directly.
Let me just plug this in here. Sorry. Yeah. So it's like if you take a incandescent bulb and you place it up. That's that's fairly soft, right? But some of these these probably aren't the best. But okay, like that. That's okay. I don't know what kind of lenses they have on these. These might be like what they call the Fresnel, or they diffuse it a little bit inside the light. but you can see the edges, right? They're pretty diffuse, right? But it's still fairly harsh. So I mean, like if you were standing out there, is that frozen? Is it what?
Frozen?
I don't think so. If you bounce it off a light, whatever it is, a card or a white sheet, you get a lot more. You want to go out there and see? I'll try to get this up so you can see a little bit of the what the DSLR looks like. Might have to restart this. So I'll talk a little bit about these. How many of you guys have heard about, in a film sense, or used these DSLRs? Like, you know, I mean, I'm sure most of you know what that is, right? Like, have you heard? What have you heard? I know, James, you said you have
He had to
considered.
He had to leave.
Oh, James isn't here. Okay. Jared, you can just leave it like that. No, go back to aperture or manual mode. So these are basically, what time is it? It's like, how many? You guys have to leave at a certain time?
About 3:30 we have breakup.
Yeah. All right, then I'll cover this and then we can wrap it up. Because this is like what I wanted to show you guys. It's kind of like a cool thing. Is that I don't know what Jared's doing, but Jared, just leave it on and manual. All right, whatever. So basically, for about these days, for about $1,000, about $800. It's about what you, or even like about $700. You can probably get some of these cameras for. And Mr. Squeary, coming from photography world, knows best what these cameras are capable of. And it's really amazing that this day and age, like what you get in that camera, in terms of like what they call the image sensor, which is what I talked about before, which is like in your eye you have an image sensor basically, which perceives the light, and every camera has one, right? And in the DSLRs, the image sensor they have in them is superb. Like, it's really good at capturing light at a lot of different ranges, intensity and color, okay? And so you get an image that looks really, really fine and really refined. If you've seen any videos shot with them, Jared's just shooting a video film now with them. It looks really great. And then you also get this, which maybe we can demonstrate. You want to go stand out there? I'll just do like the depth of field thing.
Yeah.
Just like stand up close.
Yeah,
It might be a little hard to see on this monitor. But you get this thing which they call depth of field, right? Which, because of the nature of the way these cameras are built, as opposed to what we call a camcorder, you get this great shallow depth of field with these lenses. So you get that sort of like blurry background look, which always looks really professional and really cool. Now, it can be a little cheap, but it always makes your film look pretty good, I think. So, yeah. I can't see. Is it on Jared's face?
Up a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alright, so can you see how it's showing up there?
Scary.
So you can get that real like blur.
He's blurred.
Yeah, I know.
It's a beautiful space.
Turn one off or on?
On.
Any of them? Oh god.
Yeah, a couple more.
Not that one.
No.
Raise a couple of those.
What does he say?
Raise more.
Put more on?
Yeah, put
Yeah,
more
you
on.
guys could just talk to the mic and then...
I know, it's fine.
How do you put one closer on?
It's fine, just that's good enough.
Alright.
Perfect. Alright. So, okay, so he's now in like in silhouette or whatever, but Okay.
After.
Yeah, that's great, right? So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen this before, but this is just like
Yeah.
It's a goat.
Oh. Big
I was here the whole time.
That's cool. That's kind of.
Right. So that's kind of cool, right? So you get that effect, and you can use it for a lot of different purposes. In general, it just sort of like gives this really nice professional look to your videos. But I would say that's not even the most important part of these DSLRs. The most important part is the light sensitivity, which means that you can shoot with not a lot of light, in a lot lower conditions from what these are. And really, it's about money at the end of the day. I mean, these things cost like upwards of $2,000. I think you can get one of these for like $800 and shoot a movie that looks like a $10,000 camera. So, in my mind, there's like no comparison. So I wanted to show you that. I mean, any other general questions about stuff? Like, is this all making sense? Yeah.
What's the difference between like DSLRs and like professional movie cameras that like big film studios use?
Well, that's a really good question, actually, because like, I mean, that's sort of like one of the things that you wrestle with when you're deciding, I think, and to buy a camera. And a lot of people in recent years, in the last couple of years, have decided to buy DSLRs as opposed to like really high-end professional cameras. We'll be done in like 5 minutes.
No, it's fine.
So, what's the difference between a DSLR and like a, I don't know, we'll call it like a $50,000 like studio camera?
When you shut down the TriCaster,
In my
all
opinion,
you do is like there's a big red shutdown.
well, there's a lot of different aspects, right? If you're talking about digital software, or, right, just like big things, there's just one camera called the Red
You
One.
exit out of like
Yeah, right, which is like the industry standard these days for shooting
and then
digital.
there'll be like a big
And
fat arrow on the top left.
the Red One
Click
does
on the left
beat
arrow, and
most
there'll
of
be a
these
big red
DSLRs
cabinet to shut down, and you just
sensor
shut down TriCaster.
quality. It shoots in a different file
the lights
format.
are easy.
It's
There's
called
a,
RAW, so you get a lot of information. A lot more
No, don't worry about that.
in post-production with color and editing and stuff like that. These shoot in a compressed, it's called H.624. It's like a standard compression format. It's not the best. It's pretty good. You know, it's sort of like been developed for web use and stuff, for general sort of like camcorder stuff. But it's pretty good. But yeah, so it gives you those sort of like professional things that give you that extra edge that really makes them more professional. And also, there's a lot of sort of like technical things that they add to the camera, like other extra inputs, extra. There's a bunch of other features that they add on. Makes it a lot more practical when you're shooting.
Is the 5D full frame?
Yeah.
Does that make a difference as far as?
these ones are not. So
4x3.
these are what they call APS-C, which is in like standard 35mm film, which was used. You'll probably make sure I'm right on this, right? Which was used like when film was the standard. That is a certain size, like and then when they started making digital cameras, like some of these fall. This sensor size falls under that. Those
It's cheaper.
dimensions. Right, because it's easier and it's not as expensive. The Canon 5D, one of the advantages, it's full frame, which means it's full 35mm size. Sensor size, right? So you can get more light, like better and low light. You also get this that depth of field effect, which I showed you. It actually enhanced with a larger sensor, just because of the geometries of the light and aperture and all these things. So that's enhanced, but the biggest thing is sort of like it's just better at perceiving light because there's more sensors space and I guess the individual like pixels are higher quality.
Does it make any difference for output though? Like at the final result, like the way like the screen you're like showing it on, viewing it on, or anything like
You
that?
mean in terms of like resolution?
Yeah, I guess aspect ratio really is what I was.
No.
That doesn't matter. Okay.
I don't.
I mean, it matters for still photography. I just wonder if it matters.
Yeah, because I don't know for sure but I'm pretty sure that every sensor in these has the same aspect ratio. But I mean, I'm sure that they all shoot 16 by 9, 1080p. So it's possible. I don't know if they crop some of the pixels off, but I don't think they do. They might. I don't know exactly what the ratio is.
It's a different aspect ratio.
Yeah, so they might crop some of the pixels.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes, these vary in size. Like this is 1.6 times, they call it, the size of 35 millimeter full frame. It's 1.6 times so smaller. And there's a lot of other issues. We're kind of running out of time here.
Most
But
important
Did they
thing.
shoot some movies in film that was bigger than 35 millimeters? Like I heard that Lawrence of Arabia was shot in.
yeah, I think it's 70 millimeter, right? Which was like, I guess it's like
With like the one.
really widescreen. I think they sometimes they would shoot sometimes in that. Then you have IMAX, which is like really wide and really large.
What do they shoot for IMAX?
They have special. I think they have sort of like proprietary units. Like
They have
they're
IMAX cameras.
cameras that are built specifically for those purposes. And screw it. What's it's 35 millimeters by traditional 35 millimeter film. What's the
That's the diagonal, I think.
the diagonal?
I don't use 35
Okay. Anyways,
Oh, Dan, what were you gonna say?
It's very expensive.
Oh, I was gonna say that I don't really want to shoot in this format, so the most important thing is that I want to make sure that the camera can actually display the widescreen format for what you're shooting, so that I don't have to do it in post.
Like the 70 millimeter like thing.
That would not be very.
wait.
You mean like the wide? You mean like the crop on the top and bottom?
Yeah.
Then you would want to. I don't really think you can do that in. Well, what kind of camera?
Yeah.
You might want to use. I mean, tape. Like you could
What
use
sort
on
of
your
camera
camera,
do you
and
normally
then
shoot on?
cropping's the best way you could do that.
What?
What sort of camera do you normally
Oh,
shoot?
it's just like a Sony Handycam.
In
Yeah,
HD?
Does it have?
No. Okay.
Regular
Well,
standard definition.
why you might see the bars like in a movie or something? That's only because of.
No. That's
No,
not
okay.
what I'm saying.
That's not what you're getting at.
I'm saying I shoot in widescreen, right? And I want to make sure that on the monitor on the camera it shows in widescreen if I'm going to be shooting in that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So your camera
Yeah,
has a setting
but
for that?
Does
Yeah,
your camera
it does.
your camera does shoot?
Yes.
They call it 16 by 9 is like the aspect ratio
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah.
But you're saying it doesn't display it in 16
No,
by
it
9?
does.
He's just saying
I'm
make
just
sure that if
I'm
you have
just
the
not
option
sure
to
if
do it.
these ones do.
With the DSLRs?
Yeah.
They
yeah,
do.
they do. Yeah, they do. The
They-
screen on there is not exactly 16 by 9, so I think there's a little bit of there's like little crop marks. But yeah, and essentially you can see what it looks like in proper aspect ratio. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we could go further with this, but we'll try to wrap it up. Any final questions about anything, just in general? No.
These things are popping up used too, if you like the DSLRs.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of used.
And
Yeah,
now
but-
that like Jared has this new, Canon makes, they sort of like hold this market pretty well. They make sort of like the best ones. Nikon makes ones too, but I think
Not as good for
in
video.
my opinion, yeah, the video quality is better on the Canons.
Why?
It just is. I mean, you can
I
look
don't
at
know
you can look at the
why, but I've
comparisons.
watched-
Have you looked at the
Yeah, I
comparisons?
have.
I've watched and read a lot about it, and I think that Canon's better.
Okay. Any autofocus yet?
while you're filming,
Yeah.
That's like not a thing though. Like they won't. They're not. No. Like
not
before.
on the Canons. I think Sony makes one that has an autofocus.
Are you sure about
while
that?
you're filming. What?
Are you sure about that? I don't
Yeah,
think that's a thing.
like- yeah, but I think most filmmakers, they use the follow focus and everything anyway, so they're not too worried about that. Yeah, so I guess how should we wrap this up? No questions about like your cameras, lighting, that if you guys need equipment, anything.
Yeah, when you guys get to the point when you're ready to start shooting and you want lights, you gotta ask, speak up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Up it again for you.
How hard is it to get one of these?
I
from
searched for
school
20 minutes for the bus, and I
you
finally
know,
found a
borrow
place with one.
DSLRs?
Yeah.
We actually don't, Jared, correct me, right? We actually don't have any right now, right?
Oh, from the school.
DSLRs,
Yeah, no, we
right?
don't. I mean, working on getting
Yeah,
there.
we're working.
But
So,
that's
don't hold your
Yeah.
breath.
we can't help you
Do you have
there.
any of those ones that you had last year, the smaller?
The
HD30s?
HD30s?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah,
have
we'll
like.
still have
Those are
a
right?
lot of those,
We
yeah.
have a few
Those
which
are
aren't
HD, right?
stolen.
Yeah, the full
Yeah.
HD.
What do you say? What? Like
Yeah.
four.
Okay, so
Like we had 8 originally.
we'll try to wrap this up. So another question: do you guys have any things that you would want to focus on at the next session? Like, I don't know, like some like how to file types, or that you work with, or somebody had said color correction a couple weeks ago. Okay, color correction.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Okay, chroma keying. Maybe we can throw that in there. Dan, you have any?
No, well, color correction is pretty.
Do you have any ideas now? All right, so maybe we'll do color correction. Maybe we can try to do some chroma keying in there, or maybe we'll split those up because it seems like we go through this pretty quickly. So, all right,
Good stuff.
yeah.
Like what program do you usually use to edit? 'Cause I have like so many pages, Pro 9
Here you go.
thing, but I know it's just a random guess.
I can turn
Yeah.
this off.